Hello everyone. Okay, microservices, and we are going to get we are going to take a deep dive into what exact components of the microservices. So basically, before moving further, do not understand microservices equals to a web service or a technology or so. Basically it's a concept. Okay, and many blogs and many books tells that it's what happens a better version of SOA, service oriented architecture, and we should not deny that definition either. And many say that it's completely different way to interpret the software systems. That is okay. Microservices basically, what I understood is consist of three basic things, which is componentization. So how do we componentize? How do we separate a particular business functionality? Okay, and if we separate it, how do we make sure that it has a separate databases, separate instances, separate deployment, separate structure, separate machines, okay, and a separate logic, okay, and they communicate. Okay, so there is a next thing is communication. So how do they communicate? How do they interact, exchange the data? Okay, and the finally is connect. So componentization, connect, and communication, three things together creates microservice. So microservice is not an API. So you are not going to see a particular, what I can say, annotation, okay, marking that this is microservice and go ahead and write a microservice for it. No, okay, I deny that. What we are going to do in microservices, we understand the concept and how do we implement a microservices. Okay, so let's try to understand the definitions. And again, the definition is not given by me. It's something which I have taken from different books. Microservice architecture style is a method to create an application as a set of small services. Remember that it's an application architecture. It's not a service. Okay, you are not going to define get customer service as a microservice and put customer as a RESTful service. No. Okay, so remove that concept from your mind. So microservice architecture is a style, is architectural style. Okay, is a method to create an application as a set of small services that run its process and interact with lightweight mechanism, usually an HTTP resource API. So web services are interacting. Okay, services are interacting. Okay, with each other, and these are small services. Microservices developed based on a business feature, okay, and deployed independently. This is important. Okay, business feature is important. If you do not have a boundary of a business, then microservices is meaningless. Okay, and deployed independently by an automated deployment machinery. This is very important that in microservices we are pretty much dependent on a lot of automatic parts because there are a lot of deployments, there are a lot of testing. Okay, so there is like a new era, okay, in the entire software industry to automate the stuff. Okay, and we're gonna understand what is like how do we do that? How do we automated deployment really works? Okay, so what is CI/CD, and then we do have a part of Jenkins in our course. So microservice could be considered as a subset of SOA. So now some people define it as subset of SOA, some say it supersedes that, some says that it's a different architecture altogether, and we really don't want to go into that discussion. What we really care is how do we make sure that we follow microservices architecture. Good with it? To do that, we have to understand why we need to do that first. So microservices makes an application loosely coupled. Okay, then what was the SOA? Right? So SOA has a similar definition, isn't that true? So we make the application loosely coupled. These are service based. One service call another. So what's the problem? So small teams can focus on a simple single business capability. Now this word simple single business capability is important in terms of microservices. Okay. Scaling decisions can be made at a more granular level, allowing more efficient system optimization and organization. So scaling of that particular microservice, okay, is really a good decision. Okay. So what level we should actually think about scaling is a really decision of a scrum master, okay, and the business can take the decision accordingly. Good with it. So organization, depending on the business functionality, business optimization, business vision, they can decide the scalability of the microservice. And lastly, language neutral. So language, you can use any language. You can use Python, you can use Java, you can use Scala, and whatever you want. Okay. It doesn't need any language because anyway we are going to interact with an HTTP protocol, right? Fine. So application types. So we understand this entire world or entire microservices world especially are broadly classified into two different types. One is monolithic application where entire logic is built into a single unit. That we call it the var file or EAR file or jar file for that matter. So entire logic is actually built into a single jar file or var file. Microservice architecture though, where many applications, okay, or what we call it as microservices, handle a small portion of a functionality or a data. So to be a very vague example, but very simple way to understand. So let's say I'm working on Amazon.com, okay, or might be any kind of e-commerce website where you select something. So the description of an item comes from the different microservice, and payment model is completely a different microservice that is possible, right? Because, and why do I do that though? Because payment is a different functionality and seeing a description is a different functionality. And remember that just watching a description or navigating to the atoms need more instances because only 10% or not even 10%, only 5% of my requests are actually going to payment. Before that, everybody gonna look into the description, reviews, uh, prices. So those microservices or those applications will be deployed on the more instances because there is more load. So suppose there are 10,000 users actually looking at a description, there are only 500 people actually buying it. Okay, and I said 500 is a big count. Okay, it might be the lesser than that. I'm just giving an example. Okay, so that's the importance of microservice architecture. So this is how it looks like. So in monolithic application, what you do, you actually have an entire application built in with description as well as a payment logic and deployed it on a box. And whenever you want to scale, you scale all of it. You scale entire var. You add entire var into a new JVM and it's gonna run there. Okay. If you want to scale it again, you add entire var again in a new box. On the microservices, although you actually want payment module, you don't want a payment module to get replicated to multiple boxes, so you componentize. You separate the functionality of description, payment separate. Okay, so now you're gonna handle payments. Okay, and in a one box, okay, that is sufficient for handling all the payments, and the description comes from the 95% of the boxes. Like if you have 10 boxes, the probably 9 boxes are dedicated for, when I say box, it's a server. So 10 servers or 9 servers are dedicated for seeing a description, giving a price, okay, deals, reviews, all kind of that stuff, which is non-e-commerce or non-payment module. Okay, so payment module is completely separate, which will handle separately. This can be achieved with the help of microservices concept. So you can see that here in this particular diagram is taken from Martin Flower blog. So if you get time, go ahead, read Martin Flower blog. It's very detailed, it's very nicely written. Okay, it's very plain English and simple understanding of microservice model. Okay, excellent. So there are three most important golden components that we're gonna learn. Okay, which is first is componentize, then is collaborate, and finally is connect. Okay, and we're going to stop our discussion after discussion of componentization. We're going to continue our discussion on collaborate and connect in the next session. So componentization is basically a single application broken into multiple services and workable components. Okay, or the word is serviceable components also. The most important activity is componentization because how do we how do we make sure that we create our component? Okay, it's actually going to decide future of our microservice and return on investment. Okay, one component, and there are rules to actually design a component. We're going to see that later. So one component should not interact with the multiple databases. You should have your own database for one component, or for that matter on one microservice. So once you have a monolithic web service in front of you, how do you break that monolithic application into multiple microservices? Well, that is called componentization. Okay, so how do we do it? We'll take an example of a service, we'll componentize it. Okay, we'll create one small database, and how do we make sure that our web service, which is Spring Boot based, okay, Spring Boot based web service, how do we actually work with that? Okay, we're gonna see that in the subsequent sessions. So let's stop here and let's continue to the next session. Thanks a lot, everyone. Good night.